Hello, everybody. Welcome to our February book club stream about polyamorous relationship books. Very excited. And I'm Em, but we are short to Tome Traveler, our usual Tome Travelers today, but we have two special travelers if they want to introduce themselves.
I don't know what you're talking about. We're clearly Anne in hand.
Totally Anne in hand here with me. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. I guess we should go around and say what books we read. Like I said, the theme this month, or I'll put up the potential spoiler banner just in case. But this month our theme was polyamorous relationships, which I think was a really fun theme and would be happy to do it again. And I read the young adult pick, Iron Widow, which so many good thoughts about. Can't wait to talk about it.
I also read Iron Widow.
Yeah. And we don't have anyone repping the new adult pick, so sorry if you read Den of Vipers. We don't really have anyone here to talk about it who's read it, unless either of you have read it. No?
No, I read a completely unrelated polyamorous book instead.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we could talk about that maybe too, because I'm interested to hear why that wasn't as good as this one, seemingly. So, and then our adult book was...
Our adult book was A Mage's Guide to Human Familiars, which I would 0 out of 10 recommend. Don't get it.
All right.
It was god-awful, and I cannot wait to talk about it for the next 2 hours.
Okay. We'll say hello to everyone. Hello. Hello, thanks for joining us. All right, our first topic is just the synopsis and overall rating. Mars, did you want me to read the Iron Widow excerpt, or do you want to?
You can do it.
Okay.
You got this.
I'll do my boiled down version of oh geez. Awesome Chinese mythology robots fighting aliens and taking down the patriarchy is like the the elevator pitch. I feel like. Yeah, I feel like that's the elevator pitch with super anti-hero, unhinged female lead, but we're here for it every second of it, and we love her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
If you've seen Pacific Rim, you'll understand half of the world building.
Yeah.
Just imagine Pacific Rim, but in a futuristic society that's based on ancient China.
Yeah.
Did some of you link the robots in the Troublemaker Discord? Because I've seen some pictures of some robots. I'm like, this is not what I thought it was about.
Yeah, it's a lot more sci-fi than fantasy, I think. But it was more sci-fi than I thought it was going to be, for sure. But it was good. I just wasn't expecting it to be I wasn't expecting them to be fighting aliens for some reason. That was I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would call it a sci-fi with fantasy vibes.
Yeah. Definitely. They have the tech and stuff, but there's still lore and mythology elements to it also. And yes, the cover is gorgeous. We love it. I think as far as rating, I gave it on Storygraph a 3.75, almost 4, almost a 4 for me. I really liked it. It's very solid, but I had a little bit of gripes with the ending, which is why it wasn't a full 4 or 5 for me. What about you, Mars? What did you?
So I rate my books out of 10, and I gave this a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
I read it, and I'm instantly going on my favorites shelf because I just there were things that personally I would have done differently.
Yeah.
If, I was the one writing this, but I don't think it detracted from the story. It just wasn't my specific ideas. So I'm not gonna knock off points because I didn't think it made the book worse.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't personally love little details of it.
Yeah.
And I just had a fantastic fun time reading it, and if I had a fun time reading
it so fast. Did you read it?
Yeah,
it was such a fast read.
I think I read it in 3 days, but that was because I was going out, also doing stuff, and I was thinking about it while I was out doing other stuff. I wish I could be home reading right now.
Yeah, I was really sad to see, like, I went online, like, afterwards to see, like, what other people thought of it. Because I wanted to, like, sit with it for a little bit before, like, after I finished it, before I, like, got too deep into other people's reviews. But there's a lot of negative reviews out there about it. Like, there's some really good ones. Like, it feels like it's, like, you either really love it or you, like, hate it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like if you, like, learn more about the author and, like, understanding them and where they were coming from, like, it makes, like, more sense and what they were trying to achieve too. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you didn't know the author, like, I could see why you're like, this is crazy. But like, if you read it with the lens of like knowing the author too, like, and seeing their content, like, I think it checks out more. But yes, definitely more sci-fi. Oh, glad same rating as me. And Steve, did you want to give us a synopsis of your book and your rating?
The synopsis of Mage's Guide to Human Familiars is that we meet this mage called Bell, and he's in need of a familiar. He's kind of a special breed of mages, which is like demonic mages, so they have like demonic ancestors somewhere. So they usually get human familiars because they need something more sentient to protect them. They're like special ops agents, basically, the mages, so they go out on dangerous missions. And he summons a familiar prior to the book start. Doesn't work out, and then he breaks the bond with the familiar, and that's a really painful process. And then the book opens with him summoning a second familiar, like hoping that this time it'll land. And it does. He summons a human guy, like a soldier named Nico, and then Nico has an ex, and then that ex joins the team, and those two become the familiars. I don't, how spoiler do we do this synopsis? Then those two people become the familiar, and yeah, it is just so poorly written.
No.
I gave it 1 out of 5 stars, and then I just deleted the review of my Goodreads page because I didn't want it to be there.
Fair enough.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Did you finish it though?
I did finish it. It was a quick read. Skimmed, like, there's a lot of sex scenes because it's an adult novel. And I was like, polyamory, February, I'm going to read something spicy.
Yeah.
So I just could skip through a lot of the sex scenes.
But
it wasn't very good. It's just like, I feel like it had potential to be a good story because as these two familiars train with a mage, they go on like different missions. But instead of like exploring the characters, it's just like quippy millennial banter.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same joke over and over again, and just like, and it's kind of like, I'm trying to see, do you know, have anyone seen Teen Wolf, the show? So you know Styles in season 1? Like, a lot of jokes, they don't all land. It's that vibe. Yeah. And then, like, instead of having, like, for example, a mystery with all the missions, it was just like one mindless mission after the other. So the book was just basically one long setup for like joke after joke, and just fell flat.
Oh, was the writing okay, or was the writing bad too?
It was quick. It was a quick read. It was like super simple in its construction. So nothing like super advanced. I think this is one of those MLM books that like written by women for women, if that makes sense. So I was like not vibing completely with the representation, but I'm also like aware of that the book was not written for me. So I don't know. It wasn't very plausible. And the sex stuff, I'm like, that is not how that works. So
love that.
Yeah.
I guess the segue into if we think our books were appropriate for the age category. For Iron Widow, it was YA. And it was definitely written like a YA, like it was first person. I think it was present tense, but I didn't realize that till like later when you mentioned it, and I was like,
literally like almost 300 pages in, and I'm like, is this first person?
Yeah. Yeah. So I felt like the writing style itself like read very YA, but some of the like concepts in it felt way more mature to me, at least. Like, I think the author did a good job of like boiling it down, but even then I was like, all right, like if I was like a actual like super young teenager, like 13, and I was reading this, like this would be a lot, you know. But I did really like that they put a like little content warning in the beginning, and also like saying like it's inspired by cultural elements, but it's by no means like historically accurate, which I don't know who would think that this is historically accurate reading it, fighting aliens and stuff, but you never know. So I feel like that was like a really nice little thing in the beginning that I feel like more books should have, like YA or adult even, like more content warnings and just so you know what you're getting into. But what are your thoughts, Mars?
Yeah, I definitely agree that there were some times where I'm like, this doesn't quite feel YA. Like it could definitely have been written as like new adult or even adult if like just the way it was written was changed. Like the story could very much fit an older audience. But I really like the way it was written. I'm glad that the author chose to go YA with this.
Yeah, me too. And it was definitely interesting because I think isn't the main character, isn't she 18 or 19, I think? So it almost does like border that like new adult, like if they were aged just a couple more years. And for some of the things I felt like it, like even for like spice level, I was like, man, if this was an adult book, like we could have like more, like I feel like it's already pretty violent, but I'm like we could have more in-depth like content and like even a longer book potentially. Because I was on the author's TikTok and they were talking about how they had to cut some scenes because of like word count, and I was like, that's because it's YA and they didn't want to print like a long book either. So I felt like it was almost held back because it was YA, to me at least. Like it could have been even more if it, was for a more mature audience, but I think it was good for what it was.
Yeah, I feel like where like the sex scenes and the fight scenes were cut was very well done, and like even if I wished it kind of went a little bit like deeper and darker into some of these themes, like you could tell that there was more, and I like the places where things were cut. Like there are some things in there that I definitely am glad were not cut.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy with it.
Yeah. No, I overall was too. There were some parts of it I was like, oh, I wish we could have like the YA version and then like the like even more unhinged, uncut like adult version of it. Like, but yeah, serious topics for sure. Yeah, I felt like some of them were borderline, like, but I at the same time, it's like, there's teenagers dealing with these things too and similar issues. So it's like, it's good.
Isn't that kind of the modern take on YA though, to have like, yeah, so like adult books, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, that's
like
fair.
More mature content.
Yeah. I just couldn't have. Maybe it's because I'm older, but like I couldn't imagine myself younger, like reading this, and I really enjoyed it, like as an adult. So I feel like even though it's pegged as YA, like I think anyone could read it and definitely learn something from it.
I just put it on my Goodreads wish list, so
yeah. But what about you, Steve? Was your book?
It was like a lot of spice. So it was definitely an adult book. No kids should read this.
Okay.
So yeah, over 18.
Yeah.
Or like even better, don't read it at all.
Okay.
What would you say is the percentage of the book that was spicy scenes?
God, I'm very bad at math. Like maybe 20%, 25%. And then like whatever plot was left was not very plotty, and like the characters were kind of cardboard cutouts of characters, or like stereotypes than actual people. So, but I mean, it's a spicy book, so you're not supposed to care about plotting characters, but I like my spice with a little bit of like depth to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it felt like a good first draft, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what some people were saying about this online. They're like, I feel like the intent was there, the execution wasn't. I was like, did we read the same book? Like, but
I mean, yeah, and that's fair for Mage's Guide to Human Familiarity. It was a lot of 5-star reviews, and then but also some like mid-tier and low-tier reviews. So I think my takeaway is just that people have different tastes.
Yeah, and we can go more in depth on this later, but I did absolutely love that I feel like whenever you hear about like books with like poly relationships, it's always like the super spicy, like reverse harem, like crazy, like stuff. And I'm like, I love that this was like a YA poly rep. Like, we need more of that, like where it's like kind of wholesome and cute, not just like all about the spice.
The focus was on the romance aspect instead of just being a group of people having sex.
Yeah, exactly.
That was kind of what Mage's got human family as well. It's like just it was insta love first of all. Like what adult has insta love? But also
Yeah.
some of the character dynamics. There was like some age difference, and I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't on board with all of it. But it was very much just like people banging and not very like romantic or like developing a relationship. It was just like as soon as he summoned his first familiar, it's like, he's hot. I'm like, oh god.
Let's see.
And that's coming from me. I'm a thirsty bitch, so I can appreciate that. But I need some resemblance of like connection.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm like, I don't mind a little spice, but like we gotta establish like at least a little bit of repertoire first. Like, yes. Yes, agreed.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I rebuke this. I rebut this.
Next topic is.
I think what it is, Anne, is that is my Libra rising. I think that's what making me.
There we go. How about we chat about world building, like magic system, cultural influences, anything related to that, like general world, since these were both fantasy / sci-fi. Steve, do you want to go first, or?
Sure. I really didn't care for the magic system. There was like a thin veil of a magic system. So basically, as I said, my character was a mage. He's working for this organization called MAD, which I have currently forgotten the name of. Something mages, blah 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 department. But he's like part demon, so he spends a lot of his powers concealing his demonic eyes, and that's basically what his magic does. Like they're out in the fields and he doesn't like use magic in a clever way. It's either just brute force or I don't know. I just feel like it could have been developed even further. And then the world building wise, I thought it was a bit cool. I love like a good secret organization moment, especially like a department run by mages. Like, and there was some jokes about taxes that I appreciated. Like, oh, they're in a tax bracket because they work for the government. I thought that was just cool.
Goodbye.
World building wise, it was kind of cool. Yeah, so mages are like special ops soldiers. So they kind of do dangerous missions, like in the field. So it's more like a field thing than like a magical study library thing, which I thought was cool, like more hands-on. But I wish the author has spent some time kind of fusing hands-on with more like I don't know theoretical. I don't know what I'm saying. But how did you feel about Iron Widow Mars? World building and magic wise?
There's so much in this that it really kind of just dumps you in there and doesn't really explain things right away, which kind of felt weird. Because there's a prologue that follows a character that we meet later on, and he's like a very minor character, and the prologue is him in one of the Devacia saying I leave for 2 seconds and so does the host. Yeah. Maybe she'll be back soon.
Who knows? We don't.
But yeah, the prologue is this guy in the Chrysalis, which is the big fighting machine. Hello, welcome back.
Hello, my computer just like froze and crashed. It was like great timing. Like, I'm back. Wait. Sorry.
And so like you kind of just get thrown into the world and you learn about like there's like kind of magic because everyone has this like spirit power, their key, and there's different like types of it, and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, and then it cuts to the first chapter, which is much slower than the prologue was and kind of builds up the world more.
Yeah, I like I don't know if you already talked about this. I missed like what a couple minutes, but there was like some elemental like magic influences too. like with the chi, like you had different. Did you talk about that already, or?
Nah, briefly mentioned because I said
Okay.
there's like a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's. I feel like if you're not used to fantasy or sci-fi, like it would be a lot to take in. But I think the author did a great job of, like, the action scenes were super cool, and like the big like robot fighting scenes were awesome. Like you felt like you were there, like even if you couldn't maybe like technically articulate it, like you still felt like you were present. You know what I mean? Like, and like the chrysalises were awesome. I'm a big fan of those. It just wasn't what I was expecting it to be honest. Like it exceeded my expectations. And then I like that the author included a lot of like real cultural stuff too, like feet binding and like Chinese culture.
I didn't know our main character was going to be disabled.
Yeah.
And then like it mentioned her walking with a cane, and I'm like, hello. And then it got into this whole like story about how there's like feet binding because it is based on ancient China, and I'm like, oh my god, fantastic! I love a good disabled protagonist.
Yeah, it was such a good blend, I think, of like real life Chinese culture, but then like some more like fantasy elements. Like it was a perfect match for me, at least. And I don't know, and I love that it was like all seemingly like Chinese cast too, and like just it was well done. Yeah. And the real reason we're here, we can dive into the characters and character dynamics and relationships. Do we have a favorite character from the book?
I just love all of them.
I do too. They were all
so good.
So good. Our main girly, Zetian, she was top tier. Like she was unhinged and unapologetic, and I was like, I need more of this. Like
And I like how the two love interests, Shimin and what's the other guy's name? Yeetzy. That's his name. I had to look down at my notes. I like how they're opposites, but not completely, because you have Yeetzy, who is like the very classic, like scholarly type, but then he also has this like dark kind of secret that we don't really find out about. And then you have Shimin, who is like this criminal and everyone's scared of him. He's the Iron Demon is his name, but then he has the secret soft side, and he's actually an intellectual himself and like cares about people. I was very glad that we didn't go very like stereotypical opposite love interests.
Yeah, I agree. And like I love that everyone was like kind of morally gray. You're like, I love this. Like everyone has their layers, and they're good and they're bad, and they all felt very real. And I like, as in the beginning, I was like, oh no, like this feels like very YA tropey, like the childhood friend and the like big brawny like hunky guy, like who is she to pick between? But then it just turned out like neither of them were who they thought, and they're like, why do I have to pick? Like it was a real love triangle, like not just, what is it, a love corner, I think I heard someone say.
The fact that the two guys also have romance, amazing. It was so funny when Zetian was like having her inner monologue, like, now that I'm thinking about it, Yeetzy did kind of talk funny about some male celebrities growing up, so I kind of think he might be into men, but it's fine because I'm also into women.
Yeah, they were all just like, like, are we all just into whoever? I was like, I love this. Like, and then, not just her, like, using a cane, but she was, like, in a wheelchair for a big portion of the book, too. And then even Shimin with his glasses, like, I thought that was, like...
Visual impairment representation! I loved it.
And it just made him, like, so wholesome, too, because you just are, like, this big... brawny Iron Demon, but then he needs, like, I don't know, it just added a soft side to him too, that I was like, oh, like,
when she's like, he had a very soft expression on his face, was all that scowling just because he was squinting the whole time? That was so funny.
Yeah. Wait, was Anne going through the comments for me? Audiobook? Oh, I didn't know there was an audiobook. I feel like it'd be a lot with the names. Like reading, it definitely helped for me.
I am the Edna mode of prologues. There's no prologues. And this book that I read, Mage's Guide to Human Familiars, just proved it, because the prologue was just chapter 1 and the epilogue was just the last chapter of the book. I'm like, you did not need to title this a prologue and epilogue. This is not what that is for. You just slapped a prologue and epilogue on the title because you think it looks fancy, and it shows. So
yeah. I love a good prologue when it's actually like
a prologue
stuff. Yeah. Which I think in Iron Widow, like the prologue was good and kind of sucks you in. Oh, this scene. Yeah.
And then, oh my gosh, spoilers, obviously, when she gets the wings and she's like crying and everyone's like, why are you crying? And she's like, for me, even walking is just a luxury. So like being able to do this, I'm like, girl, don't make me cry.
Yeah. Yes, they were all kind of morally gray, which I appreciated. The one thing I was bummed about in Iron Widow was like she didn't really have like any like friendships. Like obviously she was friends with like the love interest too. Like they were kind of like friends first kind of thing. But I didn't feel like there was any like super strong bonds outside of them. And then
That's
like
fair.
the whole like what sparked her whole journey was like, oh, I'm gonna like avenge my sister's death. But I still didn't feel like I was that connected to the sister either. Like I wish there was like a memory or like flashback scene of them together, because that's what sparks like Zetien's whole journey. Is she's like, I'm gonna like basically sacrifice myself to be a pilot, and like kill the guy that basically killed my sister. And like I feel like I didn't feel like that a strong dynamic between her and I know the sister was dead and like not in the book, but like I didn't feel that as strong of a bond as I would have for like that being like her whole motivation for like the first part of the book, pretty much.
You know what really confused me is the fact that the girl in the prologue is not the sister.
Yeah, I don't know why
we meet this guy and he like this girl dies in the battle. And then in the first chapter, we learn, like, oh, her sister was partnered with this guy, and then she died. And then we find out, nope, she didn't die in battle. He just killed her for no reason. And we don't really find out why, which kind of felt weird. And I'm like, it would have made so much more sense if the sister was the one in the prologue, because one, it would tie the prologue into the story more
I didn't
instead
even
of
put that
being
together.
a scene.
Yeah.
And then it would, like, tie the sister in better.
Yeah. Oh, no, glad that wasn't just me. It was something I realized after. Or I would have even loved to see, like, I feel like her dynamic with, like, some of the other, like, Iron Princesses were, like, kind of, I don't know. Like, I know she kind of bonded with one of them, but, like, I would have liked to see a little more, like...
Yeah. If we had met them earlier in the book and allowed that to develop a little more, I feel like that would have made relationships flow a little smoother.
Yeah, I agree. It felt a little forced, like, sometimes. Yeah, I hope so too. I hope there's more like friendships. I stand the love triangle, but I hope that there's some more friendships. But yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, missing the friendships.
I didn't even notice that until you said it, but yeah, she like none of the three of them really have friends outside of each other.
No, they're like, what? We have each other, so we don't really
like. It kind of makes sense why none of them would have friends, but also it would have been nice.
Yeah. Yeah. We can. I know we kind of talked about it, but Stan or roast the love interest.
Just stand all of them.
Steve, do you have any
I'm
thoughts?
roasting all of the love interests in Mage's Familiar. I don't know. It was especially one of the guys. He's older, not like old, but he kept referring to the main character as like, what was it like? He kept saying, "Hey kid, what's up?" And I'm like, should you be
Ooh.
referring to your partner as kid? I know like there's an age difference, but you're in your mid-20s and he's like 20 or something, so it's not that big. But I don't know. It was just weird. So
You
it
said
just kept
age difference before, and I thought you meant like a 20-year age gap. I didn't realize it was only a few years.
not between those two. It's like one of the the third polyamorous one. I think he's
Okay.
40 or something. Was it 42? Not important, but I don't know. He kept referring to him as a kid or like, I don't know, kind of infantilizing him. Like, oh, you're so cute when you're angry. I'm like, oh, that.
I don't like that.
That wasn't the vibe. Yeah, it wasn't the vibe. So he was like, I think they were going for like this Labrador kind of person, but it had just come off as like an anxiety riddled greyhound. I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was not it. So I didn't care for any of the love interest or the main character.
Dang. See, I feel like Iron Widow, all three of them were like super strong. As we already talked about, like they were all very strong, like layered characters, and like all their dynamics, like whichever way you looked at it, like made sense. Like there wasn't like, oh, these two don't make sense together. It was like individually, each part of their little triangle like made sense. And I like how like they kind of like balance each other out too. Like Shamin's like talked about like, you know, like the fiery kind of like on the surface at least, like kind of strong type, and then Yitzy's like, you know, I didn't think he was, I don't know, he had the most like interesting character arc for me at least. Like I feel like in the beginning I was like, oh, he's the boring like childhood friend. I was like, oh, like he
I feel like we didn't delve too far into his, but it definitely set up a lot for the next book.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I feel like he's gonna have the biggest arc in the next book.
I hope so. I want more of all of them, but I feel like he did so much for them, and I feel like he didn't get as much spotlight as he deserved. So I hope he does get a better arc. But
I mean, considering something that happened, I feel like he's going to be there more prominently than the other one for reasons.
I hold on. I saved a quote that I really liked that I feel like just like summed up their relationship. So this is from Zetien's point of view. If this were any other occasion, I'd be laughing. Perks of refusing to play by the rules. You don't have to choose between the boy who'd torture a man to death with you and the boy who'd welcome you back with pastries after. I was like, that just sums it up. Like, Shamin, she's like, I'm gonna go like torture a man together, and I know you got my back, and we can be unhinged and violent together. And then they come back, and she's like, welcome back. Here's the pastries. I love you both. And I'm like, this is great. Like,
okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When reading this, did you get Hunger Games vibes?
Yes, definitely.
Because I was like reading through this, and I'm like, it doesn't remind me of the Hunger Games, but it has the same vibes. And when I was looking on Tumblr, a lot of other people were saying the same thing.
Yeah. No, it wasn't until after I read it and I was reading other people's reviews and I was like, oh wait, like she totally plays the media card and like they're like basically like fake marriage to everyone, because that's an element in this that I think added to the sci-fi layer too, was like all these battles and stuff were being streamed.
Yeah, I really didn't expect that.
Like they're watching on their tablets, so that's like definitely Hunger Games vibes. Like, you know, everyone's watching, everyone's seeing it, and yeah, I and their like whole marriage ceremony that's broadcast and like who can make a bigger show and like their outfits and stuff. Definitely Hunger Games elements at least, but maybe that's just like just dystopian stuff too, like government media stuff. But hi Michael. Is that Stig?
Probably. She's almost antagonizing me. No, I do have a heart and I do love, but it's just, I don't know. It was not the vibe for me. And like one of the characters, because the book alternates point of views between the different characters, and one of the characters kept like, whenever the spice came up, they kept commenting on like the size difference between the main character and the two beefy like familiars, and were like, "Are you trying to portray a child?" I don't know. It was icky, the whole situation. It was like, "Oh, he's so tiny and we're so big. It's making me blah blah blah." And I'm like, yeah.
I mean, there's definitely people out there who look for that kind of thing, but I feel like not a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I was not looking. I was just looking for something gay and like polyamorous because that was like the requirement for the read. So
yeah. Yep.
I will do something unhinged if I love with you. Don't worry, I'm on her side, and Sophie.
Yeah, I am curious, Mars, what you thought like of like just general like, you know, they did torture and murder someone, Nitian and Shamin. So I'm like, how did you feel about like she was unhinged and like seemingly rightfully so, but I've seen a lot of people had mixed feelings about it. So I'm curious like where you stood.
It felt a little bit overboard. Like, I understand why that scene played out how it did from like a story perspective, but like also it could have been dialed back and I would have understood more, like it would have felt more realistic for her. There were definitely times here where I feel like people did things not like out of character, but like it was slightly more exaggerated than I would have expected.
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of those moments where I was like, would this actually happen? And then I'm like, I don't care because it makes for a good story.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I loved how this book also, it wasn't just like the obviously like the cool fight scenes were awesome, but it was more about like the mental stuff too, because like the fights are fought through their like mental connection in battles. So I liked that like it didn't matter like your literal physical strength, like it was about like your emotional spirit and like mental strength too, which I think was a good element and somehow toned it down. Like
yeah, we weren't really in the big battles very much. Like we would get glimpses of it, but most of those scenes were in like the mindscape.
Yeah. She did like low-key murder a child though in the mindscape. Didn't she?
Low-key?
I mean, she did, but like it wasn't a real child, so
Wait, it was a mental one, but she still was like
but it was still a little bit uncomfy.
Yeah, that was the one scene I was like, all right, she's just full on, she doesn't care. Like, but yeah, I did, like, I loved the whole, like, let's destroy the government and the patriarchy thing, but it did almost feel like it was being mentioned all the time. I was like, okay, I feel like you've established it, like, at this point. Like, I would have liked to see maybe a little more, like character moments between like her and her boys. Like one of the cutscenes was like a Shamin and Yitzi scene, them together, like reading to each other or something, and I'm like, why? Like I want like why
where did you find that?
It was on the author on their TikTok.
Oh my god.
And they were talking about how like, oh, I had a word count limit, so I had to cut this scene. I'm like, come on, man, because like it was great that Zetien got to be with them individually, but I felt like their like the boys' connection was like rushed and cut.
Yeah, there was like one
short
scene between the two of them.
Yeah, like I shipped them so hard, but I feel like it didn't make the mark. Like it was like felt rushed. I don't know.
I hope we get like a special edition or something with some of the cut scenes.
Also, I think this is pretty
platonic.
And I don't know if we want to answer that question.
It was Tyson body, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't put it together in the torture scene either that they full on killed him.
Yeah, it was like, when they were talking afterwards that you're like, oh god, that's what happened.
Yeah, and they're like, we hid the body. I'm like, oh. Like, that's literally what happened. He's like, okay, we're gonna hide the body, and then they come back. And he's like, cool, you put the body in the basement, have a donut. And it's like, great. Like, they're just raising hell together, and I love it. But yeah, I kind of wish there was like almost like, not that they needed another person in their like love triangle, but like even just like another girl, like
A
and
platonic friend to the trio.
yeah, or even not even that, like a girl in the love triangle would be cool too.
Mm.
But hi, Caitlin, welcome. Yeah, how did we feel about the army official guys? Like the one, I forget his name, but he was trying to like train them and ship them together.
I feel like he had more potential than he was used for. I feel like going back to comparing it to Hunger Games, because it really gives those vibes.
Oh yeah.
I feel like he could have been like a Haymitch or a Cinna character, and he just didn't really get that far, and he was more comedic relief.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. He could have done more, I feel like, and then he just ended up like kind of phasing him out. Like
even Effie. He could have been a great Effie character and like really played up his character. And then just kind of he wasn't really doing a whole lot.
Yeah. Maybe they were trying to avoid that though. Like they didn't want it to be too Hunger Gamesy. Yeah, I didn't. They all kind of creep me out, but it's also like it's like they didn't know any. I mean, some of them knew better and knew different, but like just the whole society and this book was a lot to unpack. But overall thoughts on poly relationships in our books and other books. I know you just finished one, and did we think it was successful?
No.
In these books?
I thought it was great in Iron Widow, the other book that I read. It was Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko. And the whole premise is you have the main character who's a vampire hunter, but he's kind of ostracized because when his mom was pregnant with him, she had an affair with a vampire. So people are like, is he really human? Is he part vampire? He's really human. But then he like the other two people in the poly relationship are a vampire guy and a half vampire girl who are like vampire royalty.
Okay.
And they're like, engaged, and I didn't like any of the three of them, and I also didn't like the way they interacted with each other.
Okay.
Like it seemed very stereotypical, kind of. Like whenever the main character was interacting with the male love interest, it was like they never really said anything nice to each other. They like sparred all the time, and like all of the sex scenes that were just the two of them, it was like very rough and like weird. And I just if the romance wasn't in that book, it would have been a great book. It would have been great. It would have been like a good book. But the romance was the worst aspect of it.
No. Wait, what was this book called again? So I can put it
Silver Under Nightfall.
Okay. I'll drop it in the chat real quick. Just so everyone knows. Unless we don't want to recommend it.
No. I mean, if you like Castlevania, you would probably like this book because it feels so much like Castlevania fanfiction.
Oh, I do love Castlevania.
But like it's also like not great. Like the world is fun. But yeah, I didn't like the character.
I really do like this. Was my first poly book, and I do like it because I've only read like, I mean, there have been poly books, but it's just basically a love corner, a la Hunger Games. So I do really like poly books, and I wish there was like more poly books out there that wasn't crap. But I don't know. I'm not opposed to reading poly books again.
Yeah, I agree, and I always feel like in Iron Widow, like it was like tastefully done, because like I feel like there's so like poly books, like the most I've seen are like reverse harem books, like and like that's it, and it's like just for the like spice and the smut. And I'm like, guys, like can we have like actual relationships? Because like there's people out there that are in like genuine poly relationships too, and I don't know, like making it more like depth than just like the physical spice scene. So that's what I liked about like Iron Widow. Like, and the fact that it was YA, like I thought it was gonna be impossible. Like when we picked this theme for this month, and like I guarantee there's like no like poly YA books, but then I realized that this everyone was like Iron Widow. I was like, really? And
but you got to remember it was published in 2022, and
yeah,
you bet there's like barely anything, if anything at all, published before then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but
I don't mind a love corner as long as it's like a legit love corner. Like Hunger Games is not a legit love corner. Like Gale never was on the table. He was never on the slab. He was just standing outside looking into the living room where Peeta and Katniss lived. So
I feel like he was on the table before Peeta was introduced. Like all of the backstory stuff, I feel like that's where the Gale stuff really shines. But then once you meet Peeta, you're like, no, it's obviously going to be Peeta.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't mind a love corner if it's like a real love corner, but most love corners I feel like is just fake quote unquote drama for the relationship.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Gale did suck.
Really? Do we? Am I the only like I liked Gale better than Peeta? And like,
you know what? This is your stream, so I won't bring slander into your house. But
no, it's fine.
I will.
Christ.
Gale sucks.
Yeah, Peeta was the superior love interest, and if you like Gale, I have the number 2 an excellent therapist to recommend to you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just.
No, come back. This is your stream. We have no
Steve, I have
powers
no
here.
power here.
Yeah, I guess. Is it just Anne removing you constantly? Probably.
Oh my god.
I am moving her
We have
back on
only-
the stream. I am innocent.
No, you're not. You're antagonizing. Poor M.
I don't deserve this. Okay, I'm back.
M is
I'm
like, this is
actually
my
back.
house.
Technically, it's Anne's house too, but
She's currently on holiday. It's fine.
she is. This is turning into okay.
This is another
but-
book talk.
I mean, it's fine. It's a book club, right? All books can be talked about, but
Except the Mage's got human familiars. We should forget about that.
canceled.
And Den of Vipers, because none of us read it.
I know, I'm like, and you probably don't want to talk about it, but if you
She
read
probably
it,
didn't read it.
drop it in
Well,
the
that's not a
chat.
lie. When
I
she asked
just
me if
said
I wanted to
didn't
do this
read
stream,
it. What the fuck?
when she asked me if
said
I wanted
put
to
it
do
in
this
the
stream,
chat.
she's like, "Oh, you don't actually have to read the book. Me and Han never reads the book. It's always just Emma reads the books."
That is
So I'm like,
true.
oh, okay. So that's yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I stress about it too. I'm like, I actually have to read it, and I don't know why, because you guys never read your books, so I could probably.
Because
Yeah,
you have
this-
an actual conscience, Em. And you're not...
No, there's team. I take my book club serious, and that's Em and Violet. And then there's team. Ha! Fun is fun, and that's Han and me.
Yeah. So, oh, one of the comments. Oh, hello. Oh, thank you.
Oh God. You gotta listen to Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn. But I'm pretty sure there was a quote in Iron Widow that was like, wasn't one of the army guys like suspecting, like, at least like she was interested in both of them, and he's like, you better pick like the right one, like, and Shimin's like your like husband in front of everyone, basically, so don't mess it up. And then she's like,
don't make any stupid decisions.
yeah. And then she's like, but remember, like, the triangle's the strongest shape or whatever.
I thought
Like,
that was so funny.
I know.
when-
I was like,
When Shimin and Yitzi were like kind of almost having a moment, but they were so unsure about it, and she just goes,
yeah.
I'm like, okay.
There were so many weird little things like that like, I don't know, it would go from like, I'm unhinged and gonna murder people to just like, I'm gonna be dorky and like ship my two boys together. And I love that she like shipped them both. I don't know, and I just thought it was so mature that like, I don't know, because Zetian got with Yitzi first, and obviously they like had a longer pre-established relationship, but then like they were the ones like that hooked up first, and then she was like, "Well, how do you feel about Shaman? Because like I have to be publicly like we're pairing and have to be like kind of like the Katniss Peeta thing. Like we have to pretend like we're together and in love and like this perfect match or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, like it's fine. Like there's no need to be jealous because like our I don't know. I just thought it was very mature for like YA and them being like what like 18 or 19. I was like, wow, like they're really
Couldn't be me.
not getting jealous. Like I feel like that could be a thing that could be really played up in like poly books. I don't know, I haven't read that many, but like I'm glad that they didn't do that in this. Like
I loved that they like had that conversation on the page, because I feel like people coming into this, if they like don't have any knowledge on what a polyamorous relationship is, like I have a friend who gets so upset when hearing about polyamorous relationships because he just doesn't understand. He's like, no, because obviously like someone's cheating or like someone's going to be jealous in that situation. It's like, well, not really if you have conversations, like you sit down and communicate. And the fact that they had that in this book was like so good. I'm so happy that I saw that.
No, I agree. Like, and that I feel like books usually don't have that, or like I don't see it a lot. Like those more meaningful conversations, like they just make it seem like it's all like sunshine and rainbows and not like, oh, you have to actually work and talk about it to make it successful. And that's why I'm really bummed that they cut the scene between the boys, because I feel like they never got their chance to like really establish, like our main character got to establish her like individual relationships with them, but then like I don't know, I wish they had more of a moment or like even like another point of view just to see, you know, have the boys establish their like conversation about that kind of stuff too. And I was like, are we gonna get them all three together too? Like, like would that ever happen? Because it seemed like it was Polly, but it was like, okay, I'm with him and now I'm with him, and I was like, are they all just gonna? I don't know. I feel like there was that moment in the fight scene where they were all like sharing their energy together. That was cool.
I did not expect Yeatsy to participate in the actual like fighting.
Same.
And so when he came out, I was like so excited. I'm like, yes, give me more of this.
Yeah, I really thought he was just gonna be like the brains. Like, I'm just gonna hang out and help you guys behind the scenes. But then he's like, no, I want to be out here too. I'm like, all right. Steve, was there any like weird jealousy or weird dynamic? I mean, it sounded like a lot of their dynamics maybe were a little weird, but like,
like, I mean, yes, because two of them already. So, like, the mage summoned a familiar, and then the familiar invited his ex into the relationship because they broke up at the beginning. Well, just before the book, the first familiar broke up with his ex because of like distance stuff. So like, I don't know, there wasn't really that dynamic because it was just basically insta love between all of them. So yeah, I would have loved to see some character development or some like resemblance of real humans in them, but they were just like puppets.
Oh, don't like that.
No, me neither.
Was this a short book?
Not really. 300 something Kindle pages, 380 Kindle pages.
I'm over here thinking that maybe it was just like a novella and that's why they like kind of rushed into relationships. But if it's like an actual size novel, like there's no excuse.
Yeah, I just don't think. Well, also kind of, I think it was one of those spicy books that lives for the spice and not for like the characters, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I don't know. I just don't think I was lucky with my pick of books.
Yeah, that's a bummer because it inherently sounded. When I looked it up, I was like, "Oh, that sounds like it could be."
Yeah, the premise, as I said, the premise and like the world building is like, it's there, it has potential, but then the execution just falls completely in a giant pile of turds.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did really like the premise and like the setup. I think like it's an interesting setup. So I'm like, can I just write this book myself?
Rewrite it, do it.
Yeah, I don't have it in me to write a poly, but now I'm like my current fantasy person. Like, should I make that poly? So I don't know.
We're here for it. No more love corners. We need all the love shapes, right?
Yeah.
polyhexagon.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when she like wakes up, they're like kind of sleeping all snuggled up. I forgot about that.
Yeah. But that was like, again, I want to see them talk it out. Like,
Yeah,
I felt like it was just hints of like maybe them looking at each other a little too long, like the boys, and they're like, "Ooh," but like there wasn't like I want
I
to
feel
hear
like
them talk.
that definitely has to do with having to cut scenes and also the limits of first person single perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Shimon blushes like once when Zetian mentions something about Yeezy, but you don't really like
Yeah.
have conversations about it.
Yeah. I want to know how many cutscenes there were. Like, it's a bummer. Like, I want the extended edition. Like, but maybe in the sequel. Steve, is your book a standalone or is it part of a series?
It's part of a trilogy.
Okay,
I won't be picking up the other books, but
fair enough.
there was like an ending scene in the book that kind of led to like future adventures opening up. So,
Okay.
but I
But
don't
it
know. My
sounds like
favorite
maybe
characters was like some side characters that joined for a mission, and I'm like, you seem cool. I like you. And then we went like the mission was completed, and then I went back to the kind of cardboard cutout characters. I was like, no, take me back.
yeah. See, it's always
So
isn't it the side characters that always are like better? I
yeah,
feel like there wasn't. I didn't feel like there were that many like good side characters in Iron Widow. Like the three main characters were real strong.
Yeah, they definitely outshined everyone else.
Yeah,
I mean, as they should be, though. To be fair,
yeah,
I like a good like sidekick or like a side character. But if it outshines the main character, then like, what's the point? Why do we have a main character that's like less likable than a side character?
yeah. Also, total side note, I also learned that the author of Iron Widow has ADHD, and they've heard that a lot of people with ADHD found this book easy to read. And I was like, oh. And they were like, I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. And I was like, that's interesting. I wouldn't even put that together. But love that they're being open about it. And I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else with the love triangle that I wish I had there were so many good quotes and I meant to like
I'm definitely gonna reread this at some point and tab it. The one quote that I wrote down was it's from when Zetian is like hitting on Shimon and he's like, I know that you're like in love with Yeezy and he's in love with you and I don't want you to like cheat on him and like I don't want him to just agree to this just because you feel like we have to. And she says that like they talked about it and she says love isn't she says love isn't some scarce resource to battle over. Love can be infinite as much as your heart can open. And I'm like, yes, that is a top tier line.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. I remember that, and I was like, I love this so much, and like, it's just so tasteful. Because like I said, I feel like a lot of the poly books that I've seen are always just like, for how many people can we like throw in a smut scene together? And it's like, come on, guys, like let's have all the like the real love. So I feel like the romance in this was like, it was good, and I wish it was more. Like I felt like it was rushed. Like it was a very quick read and like it was very fast paced. And I wish we had more like wholesome time with some of the characters. But
yeah.
Anyways, so we've been chatting for almost an hour, and I don't have any more specific categories. Do you guys have any like other topics or thoughts that you want to delve into, or we can just give our closing thoughts too? It's up to you guys.
My only closing thought is don't read Mage Guide to Human Familiars. I cannot stress enough how much that book is not it. For me, at least. But it might be for you, and if it does... But I will be checking out Iron Widow. That sounds fun.
Yeah, my closing thought is just read Iron Widow.
Okay. yeah, it's so good. And also check out the author's social media platforms because they're hilarious too.
Mm-hmm.
It's
They
a
have
fun
other
time.
books, right? They have one other book, I think.
I think so.
It's like a middle grade, though.
Oh,
I think I saw something about that. You're a little bit late,
Like-
Kelly.
I know. I'm like, we're just about done. Unless anyone else has in the chat has any more Iron Widow or Polly thoughts, but I'm 10 out of 10. Recommend this. And sorry, Steve, that your book wasn't.
You can see what the author's signature looks like.
Oh wait, you got a signed one?
Yeah. Because I went to Barnes and Noble to buy a different book, and then I walked past the little display that said signed copies, and I saw this, and I'm like, well, I can't pass that up.
No, you can't.
And I went to go check out, and I had like a 15-minute conversation with the checkout girl about this book.
Nice.
She's like, I'm so excited for everyone to read this. I'm like, I'm excited to pick it up, yeah.
Yeah, I saw
that's
that
cool.
the author, they did signed copies, but then they had a few that they signed with like the I Am Your Nightmare line. And if you got that, like they would send you like free fan art prints and stuff. I was like,
I didn't know that. I would have looked through all of the copies to see if anyone had it.
Yeah. But anyways, Iron Widow, 10 out of 10. We stand the poly rep and avoid Mage's Guide. Final thoughts. And this for next month, since that's relevant and people want to know probably what we're reading next month. Next month's theme is mentor and apprentice trope, sort of, even though that's like in every fantasy book, I feel like. And we're doing a Ranger's Apprentice collaboration with the Nostalgia Train Book Club with
I completely
Violet.
forgot you were doing that.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to read Ranger's Apprentice with us or other mentor and apprentice books, so basically the vibe is Nostalgia Train does usually like YA middle grade, and Ranger's Apprentice falls under that. So we'll be reading that with Violet in the Nostalgia Train, but then we're also going to pick other mentor and apprentice books for like our age categories. So all
The new Samantha Shannon book is dropping, which most definitely has an apprentice-mentor relationship, I feel like. She does a lot of that. So.
No!
Antagonists.
So yeah, we hope you guys can join us for that. Very excited to be collaborating with Violet, and I'm a big Ranger's Apprentice fan. Like that's what got me into fantasy when I was younger.
My Ranger's Apprentice shelf.
Yes. So I'm super excited to reread the first one, and yeah, hope you guys can join us for that. But in the meantime, thank you, Mars and Sieg, or I'm sorry, Anne and Han, for joining us per usual. You know, normal monthly stream. And we'll see you guys next month. Or do you guys have any outros? I don't want to ignore.
Thanks for having me again.
Okay.
Thanks for the invite.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.